This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It is the Party Loaded podcast. It is the show for Wednesday, the 22nd of May, 2019. My name is Luke Ritalik. I'm joined tonight by no longer the birthday dad diet, but Matt, the game dad diet. He's back. He's on deck.
Yes, I'm older now.
Yes.
Closer to death than ever.
Oh, well, always. every time, especially on Wednesday evenings.
Yeah, especially Wednesday evenings.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, someone who's not closer to death tonight is Christian, because he's not here. He's off holidaying around the globe. God knows where he's at the moment. He's probably hopped off a plane and he's playing Hearthstone at an airport somewhere at the moment. Poor Adrian's been stuck down south somewhere. He's gone and done a job today and been stranded, so he's not joining us either. But fortunately, we do have somebody else who is joining us on the show for the first time. I'd like to very, very formally welcome someone who is, as of right now, out of control, Mr. Chris Herdman from the Control Alt Record podcast, based in Perth as well. Hello, Chris. What's going on?
Hey guys, what's going on? Happy to be here. Before we get started, what is that diet that you were just talking about? You've switched to a...
I'm letting you take this one, Matt.
That's my last name.
That's it.
I used to joke when I was a kid that I was like the soda.
Right. I'm lost. I'm still lost. So it's your last name? Did I miss your last name?
Yep.
Yeah.
Matt Diet.
Oh, yep. Okay. That now makes sense. I missed the actual surname part. Now that makes sense. Sorry.
Because everyone just knows him as Game Dad, so nobody
Everybody
actually hears his
Game
last
Dad.
name. I think probably people who listen to this show are the only people who actually know that. That's like...
I mean, let's be honest. Like, every second person you know is probably named Matt.
Yeah.
So...
Sure.
That is true. Yep. Mr. Varnish, Mr. Finish, Mr. I don't know. There's plenty of them out there. Anyway, welcome. So Chris, you're joining us tonight to cover off some very, very important stuff that has to be done at this time of year. It is our absolute civic duty as podcast hosts talking about game stuff. We're going to talk about E3. We got a lot of E3 discussion coming up later tonight. I'm pretty pumped for it, actually. It's a good topic each year to get through, regardless of what sort of shape and size it takes. So this year being a little different to the last few, but I'm looking forward to digging into that. Before we do, though, we got a bunch of recent gaming to chat about, and I'd like to invite you, Chris, as the guest tonight, to kick off and let us know what has been going on with your week in gaming. So what are you playing?
Geez, so what's going on in my world? I find this time of year, it's a little bit difficult to find something new and exciting because, like you said, E3 is coming up, and I sort of feel around this time that all the major developers, they're prepping for E3. So I've kind of been not playing anything new over the last week or so. So I've actually jumped back into Diablo 3.
Nice. I just saw season 17 or 18.
Season 17 has just kicked off on Saturday morning for us. So I'm back into that. And but I kind of feel I've been jumping between games. I kind of feel I'm at a point where it's like there's nothing new that's hooked me. So I've kind of jumped between Diablo 3, Path of Exile, and Warframe. These three games are games that I've over a long period of time when I've just got. I feel like I'm in a drought. They're the kind of like my staples that I go back to. And I was actually playing Outward for a little bit as well. And honestly, don't understand the hype around that game. It's actually something that's been really well received, but I don't understand it. I don't get it. I think it was.
Outward, you said?
Outward. O-U-T.
Tell me about Outward. I've not actually heard about this.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, look, it's a game on Steam. It came out, when was it now? A little while ago, probably a couple of weeks ago. It actually came out on 26th of March. There we go. So a little bit more than a couple of weeks ago. But it kind of took the indie gaming scene by storm. And a lot of reviewers were giving it like 90% ratings and 85% ratings. And if you actually look at the original Steam reviews, it was like mostly positive. And a couple of the other guys on our show, they played it and they, absolutely, they loved it. They thought it was a fantastic game. They thought it was a great game. And I'm just the complete opposite. So what it really is it's really a game about exploration. It's like a third person, older styled RPG where you don't actually have like levels or anything like that. You have to go and collect your items and you're exploring giant maps with no real direction of where to go. So you kind of have to just go and find things for yourself and come across, random little caves here and there, little bases and forts all spread out all over the place. And the idea is you're going on this journey of just like, I don't want to, almost like self-discovery. You're trying to, learn about where you want to go in your particular journey. And I don't know, I just found it a really tedious game because the problem with the journey side of things, if you're going from one side of the map to the other, there's no fast travel. There's no mounts, there's no carts, there's no transportation. You are legging it from one side of the map to the other. And these maps aren't exactly small by any stretch of the imagination. They're quite large.
I was going to say, what you're describing at the moment sounds almost to me like a ground-based only No Man's Sky sort of experience in a way.
Potentially, just without all the digging and the building or the crafting and the gathering.
All right, all the fun bits there.
So just, I guess if you look, it's a third person RPG. You whack on your backpack, you go collect stuff and you try and go off on do all these missions in terms of getting from like A to B to go and deliver things. And you go and join certain factions and you have to do stuff for them to try and, build up your reputation. And in that side of the space, there's like stamina involved and there's your health and endurance and all this type of thing. Interesting combat mechanics, potentially fairly similar to Dark Souls in the sense of you need to time and dodge and parry and block and all this type of thing, but your timing has to be pretty much spot on so you don't take too much hits. And yeah, look, to me it was like a super tedious game. It's about $60 as well. So if you are someone who sees these reviews and these positive reviews on Steam, actually now that I look at it, recent reviews has actually dropped back to a mixed. Going back to like a month or two ago, that was like mostly positive across a couple of thousand reviews. I would highly recommend, if this is something that you've been looking at, whack it on a wish list, wait for a sale. And even then, be careful. Just be careful of your 2 hour. If you get it off Steam, just be careful of that 2 hour time limit and be prepared to hit that refund button. Definitely on that one. But outside of that, Diablo 3, Warframe, and Path of Exile is sort of where I've been spending a bit of my time over the last week or so.
Pretty solid games, those. That's for sure.
They're good old staples. You can't really go wrong, I think, with those types of games.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. A bunch of us have been doing the whole comfort food gaming thing recently, I think, with the exception of the thing that Matt and I are about to talk about, I suspect. So
yes.
All right, well, you kick in. What's been going on with you this week?
Well, I'll get to Rage 2 in a little bit because I actually played something that Jam was trying really hard to get me to play. I played it last night. I played What Remains of Edith Finch.
Oh, you finally did. Well done.
I finally played it. And thanks, Jam. I totally wanted to play a game that would make me cry.
What game is this? Edith Finch.
What Remains of Edith Finch.
What Remains? What type of game is that? I haven't heard of it.
It's a walking simulator. Like let's be completely upfront, but it has a lot of game mechanics in it, and I don't want to say how because it kind of spoils the surprise. But I was pleasantly surprised by it. Like, it's very much a story about family and death and creativity. There's not a lot I can say about it because it is a walking simulator. It is all about the story, and there's not much I can say that wouldn't spoil the story for it.
I guess the key thing you could say is that a lot of it is based around this really funky house.
Yes.
So, and you're kind of exploring the house and going through individual characters' tales in different areas of the house is kind of the overarching concept.
quite honestly, like the house is the one piece of story that you get fairly early on that I don't feel would be a spoiler. But basically, like it's about the Finch family who relocated to, I think it's the United States, and they were basically running away from a curse that they thought they were haunted by, and they packed up their entire house, tossed it on a boat, and went overseas to basically escape this curse. And then rough seas toppled their house into the ocean. And so they had to rebuild, and you basically are playing in this house that they've rebuilt. And you can see that it's got like this kind of classical, almost colonial house in the base. But over the years, they've strapped on other bits and pieces of house onto it. And it looks like something out of like Dr. Seuss almost. Like it's
totally.
very, very interesting. But it's got a realistic art style, which, yeah, it's really cool. But it's basically a story about this girl that you're playing as that's going back to this house and learning about the family members that came before her, and what happened to them, and learning about this curse and everything. And it's really, really good. Like as a creative person, as somebody that is in creative industries, like it very much hit home on the creativity side, like the little undertones of how creativity kind of influences people. But also a lot of themes of death and like just family. So it's a game made to make you cry. And there's a fantastic mid-game, like, I'm not even going to call it a twist, but surprise that actually made me pause and go, whoa, okay, well that's going somewhere. And yeah, like just the game pays off in such a wonderful way. It's brilliant. Like, absolutely loved it.
In terms of how it plays out, is it like a first person or a third person?
First person. There.
When you say it's primarily story based, could it be in terms of how the actual game progresses? Because I'm guessing there's no levels or weapons or anything like that based off what you're sort of saying there. Could it be something similar to like Soma, where it's a first person story driven game where the only real interaction that you have with the world is clicking buttons and, control panels and opening doors and things like that? Could it be something similar to that?
Yes, it is very similar to Soma, but it does actually kind of have levels in a way. And I don't want to say exactly how, because again, I feel like that actually spoils some of the surprise. But yeah, like suffice it to say, you're going back to this house and investigating all your different family members. And I'll leave it at that as to how levels might play out in this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it is a phenomenal game, though. I will definitely add on to that. It is definitely worth your time.
Brilliant.
Is this on Steam?
Yeah.
It's on Steam, and it's only like 2 hours from start to finish. Like it is very short. But it's brilliant. Like I absolutely 100% recommend it to people.
Yeah.
If you've got a free evening, play it.
Just actually having a look at it.
Put it on your wish list, and when a sale comes up, just question yourself why you waited so long.
Wow.
You should have bought it beforehand.
Just looking at overwhelmingly positive across all reviews. 10,500 of them. So
it is brilliant.
$30 or $28.95, just rounding up for 2 hours worth of gameplay.
Yeah, I would pay it for this particular one. I think it's definitely worth the price. Yep.
Yeah. Like in terms of like a story being delivered, it's not leaning into gameplay, it's leaning into story, and it is a movie's worth of story. Like it's absolutely fantastic. I can't understate that. Like $30 is absolutely, I think, a fantastic price point. But if you want to hold off and get it cheaper, then it'll definitely probably go down to like 20 or 15 during sale.
I like there's a review here. It takes 2 hours to play and a lifetime to reflect.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is a very good review and 100% accurate, I'd say.
All right, hang on.
But yeah.
Where's my add to wish list? Done. It's on my wish list.
Nice.
Other than that, I did put in more time with Rage 2, which the more I play it, the more I rage. No, I make a joke. Like, to be perfectly honest, it's not bad. Like, Simon had told me to stick with it because the open world gets better. I'm like 14 hours in and the world has not gotten better. I find myself kind of just booting it up and traveling to a location, having a great time killing everybody at that location, and then going, oh no, I have to travel to another location, and then turning the game off and not playing it again until I'm willing to suck it up and stomach the open world. Like, I've been just disliking the going from point to point that much because it's just so boring. And it's like this boringness spacing out just genuine moments of incredible fun. It is so it pisses me off. Like, it really does.
And it has microtransactions in it, correct?
It does. It does have microtransactions in it for cosmetic stuff, and it's only cosmetic right now.
I don't understand that. It's a single-player game. Why would you do that?
Yeah. It just, I don't get it. There's clearly a lot of cool abilities and cool weapons to get, but I'm 14 hours in and I'm still just at a shotgun and an assault rifle and like I've gotten a decent amount of abilities and everything, but just come on. I hate the fact that I'm having to convince myself to play it because it'll get more fun. It'll get more fun.
That's not a good selling line. It's like,
No.
keep playing, it eventually gets good. Well, I paid the full $60 for it. How about I give you 40 and maybe you'll get the rest if it gets good. I think that's not a great line to use to sell a game. It gets good eventually.
Like the unfortunate part is that the parts where it's good, it's brilliant. Like the things it's great at, it excels at. And if it was just a game of all those high points, it'd be so good. It would be another Doom 2016. Was it 2016
Yeah,
or 2018?
2016. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be another Doom 2016. Like, but right now it's not that. It's Doom 2016 with like 30 minutes of boring shit between every fight. And that's just not good.
All right. So, would you like my thoughts, having played about
Yes.
10 hours or so now? All right. So, Rage 2. Matt, I think you are smoking something vicious. So I love this game. I think it's amazing. So, yeah, as a complete counterpoint, like, I can kind of understand where some of your impressions have come from, but I do not echo them. I am having a ball with Rage 2. I'm absolutely loving it. And it's just making me question maybe the order of operations that both of us have taken when it comes to exploring some of the content. So, like, one of the big things that the game focuses around in the early stages are these three key individuals that you sort of need to make contact with to advance the first part of the storyline. And you're kind of given like a very vague idea of how to do that. Like, you've got points that appear on the map and it's mentioned that one of them is closer than the other two. So it's suggested that you could contact him first and sort of, do stuff relating to him. But those three sort of, I guess, encounters are kind of central to how a lot of the Rage story and mechanics play out, because there's actually advancement trees that are centered around making contact with those three characters, and they open up after that. And I think that if the game fails to do anything, it's to make it clear enough to you that you should be doing those as a priority to actually start to power up your character, because every encounter that you get into, like, the more stuff that you have in terms of your ridiculous sort of nanotrite superpowers and weapons and all that sort of stuff, the more of that stuff that you get early on, the better fun you're going to have with every single thing that comes afterwards. So I'm very curious as to what sequence you went at, Matt, when it came to getting those things. Like, I'm assuming you went for the first guy and picked up your shotgun pretty early on. So You've got that. Have you encountered the other two so far? You've done that?
I have not encountered the other two.
Okay, that might be why. I think that might be why you're having this experience. Yeah.
I have no doubt, but I will point out, like, I'm having a great time with Rage 2. The problem I have is the open world. Yeah. And if you have an open world, but the intent is that you go from one of those things to another one of those things to another one of those things and ignore the open world content, what's the point of the open world?
I think the open world is great, and I think the open world is super fun, and I've been having a lot of sort of fun with it. But what I've been doing is just randomly encountering things as I travel somewhere else, as opposed to just sort of going off the beaten path. So
yeah, because I've been exploring. I've been doing a lot of exploring, and I think that might come down to how we both might have different personalities in terms of like our gameplay style.
Yeah.
Because I love exploring shit like that.
Yeah. I mean, it does very well at simulating what it's supposed to be, which is like a wasteland. And I think that if it was too much more populated with, settlements and raiders and, maniacs sort of, hooning around on vehicles and things in some of the open spaces, it would fail to give that sort of vibe. And what they've done is almost necessary to kind of achieve that. But I think that there's enough things for you to explore and enough things that appear on the map that you can kind of angle towards without having to go completely off into no man's land, if that makes sense. So, but yeah. I do agree there's a lot of space between sort of individual key locations on the map. But I don't know. I think it's just down to the different ways we've been playing the game. I would highly recommend to you, from my sort of experience over the first 10 hours, go make contact with those other two characters and see how you go from there. because I think that
Yeah.
you might be sort of dragging out some of the stuff that doesn't need to be dragged out before you get into some of the really fun stuff. And the game does a poor job of sort of giving you that direction, to be fair. So it's not a player's fault. It's kind of, it is the fault in the way the game progression is structured in a way. But yeah. So
I did actually go and follow one of those main quests, thinking that it was one of the major ones, only to find out it was one of the DLC quests.
Yeah.
Which gave me like the original Rage weapon and stuff, which I did. I actually quite enjoyed that mission and everything. But I think like Rage's problem is that I agree that it should feel like a wasteland, but you can make a game feel like it's a wasteland and still have it be more about the journey than the destination. Yeah. And right now, Rage 2 is a game that's all about the destination, and you don't give a shit about the journey. Unless at some point, like through those major story beats and everything like that, it introduces something that makes the journey more important. Right now, the journey's very lonely and very boring, but the destination's fucking great.
Yeah, that's fair. Hey, so after last week when you mentioned that you went with the female protagonist, I did the thing that I always do when I know there's a couple of choices with regards to the main protagonist at the beginning of a new game, and I looked up who the voice actors were. So the female voice actor I didn't recognize, but as soon as I saw that the male one was actually Sam Riegel, I was just like, yeah, I think I'm going to play a guy for this one. Yeah.
Sam Riegel.
Sam Riegel from, he's been in a bunch of stuff. Critical Role fame. Obviously, he plays Not the Brave in the current season of Critical Role. He's a super funny dude, and he's the main sort of male sort of character in this that you play as. So
does he have the voice for that? It's actually a little bit surprising because I only know him from Critical Role and Ray. I haven't played Rage 2, but Rage is very much a chaotic, very vibrant explosions and big guns and things like that, and I just wouldn't picture someone like Sam Riegel being the voice for that type of game.
It weirdly fits, and I think the reason why it fits, and this is probably the thing that surprised me the most about the game to this point, all of the marketing that we saw around Rage 2 before it came out, like all your Andrew WK sort of performances and all the weird wacky mayhem of the neon sort of spray paint coloured maniacs with the studded baseball bats and grenades and mohawks. I haven't seen enough of that stuff. Like, honestly, the game probably is too serious at this point. There's been nowhere near as much of the weird and wacky stuff that I've seen in all the marketing. To me, it plays a lot more like a Mad Max than it does a Borderlands, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, yeah, and that's probably the thing that surprised me the most. Like, I'm sure that there's going to be some ridiculousness sort of as I work through. And honestly, there has been a little bit up to this point as well. Like, one of the things that I totally love, minor spoiler when you very first start the game, when you're asked to choose between the male and the female sort of main character, immediately after you make the choice, the door to the room that you're in blows open and completely destroys the other one, just flattens them, pulverizes them into mush on the ground. It's hilarious. So, there's some good moments, but it's not as fast and thick as I was expecting based on what we'd seen in the marketing. So, yeah. But I don't think it's like Doom at all. Like I was going in expecting it to be more of a Doom 2016 kind of game, but to me it feels a lot more like Wolfenstein, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Like as I said last episode, like it's much more about the gunplay than Doom is, whereas Doom's all about rip and tear. This is much more about the gunplay in the same way that Wolfenstein's a bit more about the gunplay. Quite honestly, I prefer the gunplay in Rage 2 over Wolfenstein's.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it's because it's got a good mix of up-close stuff as well. And oh my God, when you find that shotgun, I think this may be the best shotgun in gaming.
It's so
phenomenal.
good.
Phenomenal. Yeah, it's real good. But no, I'm enjoying the heck out of it. I've got a lot more to play, and I'll definitely have some more impressions next week. But man, there are no complaints from me at this point. I think, observations aside, I haven't found anything that I've really severely disliked, so it's been good. But anyway, enough raging. I've got one last thing I just wanted to quickly mention before we kick on into some news. Now, I have also been playing the new single-player content for the Hearthstone Dalaran Heist. So the Rise of Shadows expansion that came out a few weeks back that Christian and I have been speaking about. What Blizzard's been doing with the Hearthstone content releases is after the sort of main card expansion goes live, they do the single player content usually a couple of weeks afterwards. And the last few expansions that we've had have been mostly similar. They've been this sort of roguelike dungeon run kind of thing where you sort of fight an 8-round sort of gauntlet against a whole bunch of different random bosses, and it's been pretty fun. What they've done with Dalaran Heist this time is it's a free first wing adventure, and then you sort of pay to unlock the other ones if you want to. It is kind of similar to the old style expansions where you have like a stage by stage complete a wing and then move on to the next wing kind of thing. But it's done in the dungeon run style where you've actually got the random encounters over 8 different fights. But the biggest difference between this and how they've done it recently is that when you build your deck for this particular one, you actually get a chance to change your deck partway through the run. And they do that in a really cool, inventive way of actually allowing you to have a encounter with an innkeeper, and the innkeeper gives you the option to purchase some new cards and spend some other sort of gold resources to get rid of cards that are in your deck. And the way they do it is super clever. It adds a whole bunch more decision points into the whole process so that you don't get screwed over if you just have a bad deck that you build up as you go. And I love it. I think it's the best single player content they've done to date. It is absolutely fantastic. So highly recommend. It's a little bit of a shame that beyond the first wing it costs to play, but honestly, Hearthstone's at this point now where when it comes to the free single player content, it's got so much. It's just got a ridiculous amount of single player content.
So when you say the free single, because I don't play the card games or anything like that, but when I have dabbled in Hearthstone purely because I've been a fan of Blizzard for since like Warcraft 2 essentially and Diablo 1. Up until more recent times, they've dropped off my list. But so I have given all their games a go, and I did try Hearthstone because it was free. I mean, if we had to buy it, I wouldn't have, but it was free. So like Heroes of the Storm, I'll give it a crack.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure enough, I remember if there's an expansion, there was like the Naxxramas expansion. I went in, I did the first wing, I kind of did what you needed to do, and then it's like, the next one costs you money. But now, because there's been so many expansions, would something like the Naxxramas be completely free, all the wings, or are they still locked behind a paywall?
Yeah, those ones are still locked.
Right.
And you can still do the first wing for free kind of thing, but there's a lot less incentive to do those expansions now because the big draw to some of those older ones was that by completing them, you actually unlock cards out of that set. And that obviously is stuff that you use in the multiplayer game. With the newer style, dungeon run style expansions, you are actually given all the cards that you need to play that content. You don't need your own collection at all. So that's the big difference.
So what's then the advantage of paying for the extra wings?
If you enjoy playing the content, pretty much. It really comes down to that. You actually do get some card pack bonuses for completing different objectives in the content. Like if you, in each of the wings, if you manage to beat 5 out of the 8 bosses, you get 3 packs, which is kind of, I look at it as like you invest in the content and then you get part of that cost back in the form of content, like packs for the game, which is fine. But it's not anything beyond you invest in it because you want to have a good time with it. That's really what it is. So,
I mean, it doesn't upset me that they have the wings behind the paywalls or anything like that because it is a free game, like you said. But I just wasn't certain if, all right, we're up to expansion, number whatever. How many expansions have there been for Hearthstone now?
God, I think we're into about nearly 12-ish.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
So we're up to number 12, but all prior 11, only the first wing is free, but the other wings you still have to pay for. I thought there could have been by now, like you say, well, there's no point in doing the Naxxramas one because all the cards are useless now, but you still can't get it. You still have to pay for something that's useless.
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to play Hearthstone. Like if you want to play the standard format, only the last sort of 2 years worth of content are within the cycle for that format anyway. If you want to play Wild, then you've got all of the cards that have ever been printed for the game sort of thing, in which case the Naxxramas cards could still be used. But the way they've approached every expansion has been different. Like some of them have had no single player content. Some of them have just been card expansions and that's it. Some of them have had additional adventures and some haven't. So the one that they did last year, at the end of the year, the single player content was puzzles. Like it was actual Hearthstone puzzles using sort of card state sort of scenarios where you actually have to try and win in different instances in one turn by doing the right thing with the cards that are on the board. And that was a totally unique and different thing. And I love that. That was really cool. But yeah, they take a different approach every time. It's good to see them mix it up. And given that there's been that many of them now, I think there's no shortage of content for people to pick from, whether they're playing, the paid version of the hobby or just dabbling for free. So yeah, it's good. But anyway, Hearthstone's always a risk when it comes to me chatting about that. And if it was Christian was here, I think it'd be a double risk. But I'll stop myself in my tracks right now and we'll take a quick pause and jump into some news.
Now it's time to hear some gaming news. Time for Some gaming news.
All right, well, on the list for tonight, I would like to kick us off with the Nintendo Direct that happened just after we recorded last week, which was the big Mario Maker 2 Direct. Did you guys happen to see this one? Did you watch?
I did not.
You did not?
No, you're going to have to fill us in as well. I know of this Mario you speak of, but Mario Maker is actually, it's not a game I've actually ever really played.
All right, well...
What's a Mario?
You should. If you have a Switch, this looks like it's going to be a super good game to own on Switch.
Is Mario the red Luigi?
Oh, yes.
Nice.
I love your
like
take
that.
on this. That's fantastic. Luigi probably does too. So, yeah, I mean, the original Mario Maker was a Wii U game. It was pretty much like a level editor for the tile sets across the original sort of 2D Mario games. So, Super Mario 1, 3, and World, I think, were the only ones covered, if I'm correct. They didn't do Mario 2 because it's a slightly different mechanics in that game. With being able to pick things up and throw them as opposed to just the usual jumping and block breaking and stuff. But yeah, Mario Maker 2, they had a presentation which was about 15 minutes worth of video, and this Direct was very similar to the way they approached, I don't know if you guys remember the Smash Brothers Directs of last year, where they went into a lot of detail about the stuff they were adding to the game and the mechanics of how everything worked with the characters and that sort of stuff. This was that kind of level of detail, but done in a fantastic way that sort of told you everything you needed to know if you were a fan of Mario games, and sort of, design tools to say that this is exactly what you want out of the sequel to this thing. So I think almost every feature that people who played the original could possibly have wanted, they've put in this thing. The only thing that I think they're missing is you don't have the ability to create like an overworld map which links stages together. Apart from that, this thing has everything in the kitchen sink. It is ridiculous. So you can play multiplayer games, which can be, 1v1, v1, like 4-player all on all, or you can play co-op, or you can do, there's like co-op boss battles. You can link a whole bunch of levels together to create like a chain. There's different victory conditions, so you can actually design levels that don't require you just to get to the end. You might actually have to do something else, like collect a certain number of stars, or like locate a hidden item, or something like that. Huge amount of new tools that have been added to the game as well. They've got assets from Mario 3D World as well, which they've adapted to fit the 2D frame. So it's weird. Like, it's the same sorts of characters and suits and power-ups and that kind of stuff, but it's done in a way that makes sense for a side-scrolling Mario game as opposed to an open 3D environment. So it's cool what they've done. And I don't know for sure, but there was a bit of space on some of those menus during the presentation which indicated that maybe there will be some additional DLC tile sets added later. Perhaps. I'm speculating, but there certainly seemed to be sort of capacity for it. So, yeah, I'm super excited about this thing. It looked like, Matt, to use a comparison that you will understand, it looked like the dreams of Super Mario Maker, basically.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So
that's a terrifying prospect.
Oh, man, it looks cool. Yeah, super cool. But yeah, other stuff that we touched on in recent weeks to sort of circle back on as well. Microsoft have now come out and shown a lot more on their upcoming Minecraft augmented reality game. So we now know it's called Minecraft Earth. We now know it's coming out soonish in terms of probably this year. And we now know that it is exactly what we kind of like jokingly speculated it could be. It turns out we're on the money. You actually get to build block stuff in the real world. So, yeah.
So is this basically what they were trying to do with Minecraft when Microsoft announced the first HoloLens, where they're like, oh, you can play Minecraft on your coffee table with the HoloLens. And it's like, well, actually, that was more like you'd actually use your actual hands to move stuff around. This is now obviously through your phone. I think it's weird.
I think it's weird too, but I think it's exactly what it needs to be, because if it's just the same as Pokemon Go again, then why is it going to be special? So,
I mean, if you're out, I can't, I'm just trying to imagine what the world will be like, because, Minecraft, it doesn't exactly have a small following. There's a lot of people that love this game, and they all probably have phones. But I mean, are we going to see something similar in the way of Pokemon Go, where you've got people walking around looking at the screens more so than they normally do now?
Yeah.
Around the city going, I'm going to build this little house on St. George's Terrace in the city, and it's just like, get out the way. We've got people trying to get to work and things like that. I don't know. I just think it's just going to be, I can't see people taking to this that well. I think in the real world, it's not very practical.
It's going to be super interesting. It is kind of resource collection based as well, though. Like, you actually do need to sort of go out and collect the resources needed to build things. So my prediction is that pink wool is going to be in extremely high demand because you're going to see people building dicks everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I kind of feel like the way they're going to do it, because like the whole idea of you can just build wherever you want, that's not going to be how it pans out. It'll be a matter of you have to go gather resources, and through those resources you can purchase a space, and you can basically say, I am going to claim this spot, and by claiming that spot, now you can build there, but others can build there as well, as long as they're like on a friends list or something like that. And then that way you can be like, I'm going to build something on my house, because otherwise the idea of you being able to walk outside and just every square kilometer of space in the real world being a space that you can build in the Minecraft Earth, that's never going to work. Like that is not going to play out.
The other thing that I think is just going to be is not going to work for it is like what was really cool about when they showed it on the HoloLens is the idea is you've got the glasses and the goggles on your head, so you can now freely move your head in any direction, and there will be essentially a very immersive, if you wanted, life-size building that you have created in Minecraft AR through the HoloLens, and you would have the goggles on, and you would know you would actually see that AR, but to kind of walk around, I've got my phone in my hands now, and I'm just kind of thinking, wait, this is now my screen. This tiny little 5x1 inch screen is what I now need to use to try and look at the world all around me. That's going to cut out, here's a house in front of me. It's only going to show the section that I'm looking at. If I want to see the roof, I need to obviously move the phone, but then I can't see the bottom. You're going to cut so much out, and I don't think the practicality of this is actually going to be as crazy good as they think it's going to be. I think it's actually going to be, I think it's going to flop.
No.
I don't know. Because the thing that I get the impression, I don't think that you'll be looking at a space through your phone and then building onto that space. I think, so has anybody played Lego Island?
No, I'm familiar.
No.
Okay,
No.
so Lego Island, super old. But it was a game where basically like you would actually construct a model and you could modify it and whatever with colors and such. But it was like you just basically put together a thing based on a certain number of parts you had, and then you could place that in the world. I kind of see that being how they're going to do Minecraft Earth. It will basically be a matter of, I'm going to make a house, and then I'm going to choose a spot to put that house, rather than trying to build something while looking at it through AR. Like that just seems like a terrible idea. It'll be more about placing those things and then having the fun of building stuff in Minecraft on your phone than it will be just, trying to build stuff in AR, because that sounds like a horrible user experience. So,
okay. I guess when I look at, I'm on a particular website now, and I'm guessing this is some of the marketing material that Microsoft, I'm assuming, are using. And there's like an image here where there's like this little tower thing going on, and there's three people sort of hovering around it, looking through their screens, placing blocks to build the tower. And then the other thing is like there's the Minecraft Earth official reveal trailer. The first thing, and the still image before you hit play, is a dude with a skateboard looking down the street, and then there's one of those tall sort of Slenderman type
The Enderman,
characters
yeah.
in it, and or whatever. I'm not sure what they're called. But the thing is, it's like that kind of goes back to how disconnected I feel the marketing teams are from the developers. Because if this is being done through your phone, well, the dude's not even looking at the creature standing next to him. So no, the guy's not going to be there because you can't see him through your phone. So I just find it, I don't know, I'm finding it a hard task to visualize how this is actually going to look and play. So I'm happy to be proven wrong, because I'm all for AR and VR stuff, but
I think the best things it's got going for it is the Minecraft brand is massive. I think if anything was going to come close to being Pokemon level of popularity, Minecraft would be one of the things I'd pick. I mean, as of, I think it was just this week, they've revealed that they've now sold over 150 million copies of the game since launch 10 years ago, which is just astronomical. That's ridiculous. And the other thing too is that it's creativity and it's collaboration. So those two things tend to get a lot of people hooked. And the only thing I'm scared of when it comes to a game like this is how they're going to monetize it, because it's a mobile game. Of course they will.
Yeah.
And it's a resource-driven mobile game. So that makes me scared that there's going to be certain types of blocks hidden behind paywalls. And I'm just like,
It's a resource-driven mobile game for kids. Like that's the key part that worries me.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's going to be the sticking point, I think. If it's just pure fun and creativity on a global scale, I think they could do very well. But yeah, I mean, like you, Chris, I'm very curious as to how the mechanics of that actually work. I think I want to see a lot more than just the trailer to get a handle on it.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Well, speaking of Microsoft and fun and creativity, this is a creative kind of collaboration going on. Microsoft and Sony are working together.
What?
That is strange.
Yeah.
Like,
so they're working together for cloud gaming related stuff. It has Sony and Microsoft basically coordinating on artificial intelligence. Sony's going to be using Microsoft's Azure framework and such, which is basically their cloud system. Whether or not this all ties back into the X Cloud, I don't know if that's been confirmed, but it's a weird collaboration because this is specifically for interactive media, like it's for video games. So
I mean, part of the sort of rumors around why Microsoft or Sony are sort of banding together on this is because of Google's Stadia announcement. And if their knee-jerk reaction is to work together because they think the Google Stadia is going to take off, I don't think they've got anything to worry about.
yeah,
I don't think it's
So
that. Yeah.
No? Okay.
No, I think probably what it comes more down to, like, one thing that I thought was hilarious about this whole thing is that Sony's inner PlayStation team actually didn't know about this until it was announced, and they had to be told after the fact that, whoops, sorry, this is happening. So apparently the agreement had been made at an executive level that they were going to be working with Microsoft, and some people internally at Sony were super surprised, which is not a good look. But when it comes down to it, like, I think Sony knows that there's a change of wind coming when it comes to the way that we game, and a lot of this cloud-based service infrastructure that other companies, have in much more ready state than Sony does. Like, Sony really doesn't have anything of that nature. You're looking at the big three globally is going to be what Microsoft has built up in their infrastructure, Google, and Amazon. And I think Sony has been working with either Google or Amazon up until this point, but they've had some struggles in the past with that. So moving over to Microsoft offering, I mean, it's hard to sometimes remember that Microsoft is a much bigger company than just Xbox when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
like, they have a huge range of services that they offer beyond the gaming side of things. So it's not that weird that Sony and Microsoft are working together.
Yep.
It would be weirder if it was PlayStation and Xbox that were collaborating. So yeah,
that was very much the way that I kind of read this as well. Like, it was like, this announcement could very well have read, Sony announces that it's going to be working with Amazon. And that would have been like, okay, well, how? And when you think that Amazon has their AWS cloud services and everything like that, it'd just be Sony using that service, essentially.
Exactly.
Like, it's just service-based. And I kind of expect that's what they're going to be doing with Microsoft here.
Yeah.
It's going to be more, you give us the software, and that will be the extent of the collaboration. Because I seriously doubt Microsoft will want to be going, here's a whole bunch of stuff that we've developed for our xCloud and Xbox gaming stuff, and giving that to Sony to just go ahead and use to compete with them. That would be a terrible business move on Microsoft's behalf.
It's kind of a good look for Sony short term though, but long term I think it's going to really start to make clear that they are lacking in some of the big competitive areas that they're going to need to up their game in. So super interesting.
Well, Sony's more a hardware company, while Microsoft's more of a software company. So it makes sense to me. Looking at it like that just makes sense. But yeah, in other news, so you'll remember last week I was talking about the fact that Riot had that big walkout. Riot had a riot. And so they had basically put a deadline to May 6th for Riot Games to respond. And basically they were protesting the fact that there's this forced arbitration in their contracts. So if you have any sort of issue with Riot Games, then you have to take it up with Riot Games first. They will force that upon you. It's not exactly a very good thing, because if you have an issue with your boss sexually harassing you, for example, you've now got to take that to Riot Games, and they probably wouldn't do anything about it, and then you wouldn't be allowed to go and actually take them to court over however that was resolved. Like, it's not great. But Riot's turned around to that, said, no, we're not going to budge on it. And yeah, it's kind of bullshit. the point at which now that the Riot devs find themselves is basically what more can we do to make it clear that we're not going to stand for that, basically. Yeah.
So my understanding is that when it comes to the forced arbitration stuff, like anyone joining the company from this point onwards has the option to opt out of that, but any existing employees that are part of ongoing arbitration, that they can't opt out of that now because things are already in motion. So it seems like a lot of it's sort of caught up in the legal side of things as opposed to...
Yeah.
I mean, the company could obviously take some steps to, save face and do what is seen as right by everybody else, but I think they probably are not because they've got legal advice to the contrary. That's kind of the instinct that I have on it. So, yeah, I don't know. When it gets legal, it's very complicated.
I don't like any situation where you're put in a circumstance where you can opt out of something.
Yeah.
Like, who was it that recently came out and said, "Oh, we don't force our employees to crunch. We allow them to opt out of crunching."
Yeah.
And it's like what I had gone and said on Twitter is like, game development isn't BDSM. You don't need a safe word.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't have to go into the office and say, "This is too much crunch for me. Can I please not?" Like, the idea of anybody being totally cool with forced arbitration, like, no. How about you just remove that from the contract if you're happy to take it away if people request it not be there?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's
because
also...
it's not a good thing.
I'm sure there's also the fear for employees that kind of think, oh, yes, you can opt out of the crunch stuff, but is there any sort of bias impact that's going to then fall against them later on down the track? It's like, oh, well, Jimmy Joe Blogs over there, he still crunches. He does his 18 hours a day, but you can go back to your 8 hours, and you just know that.
Exactly.
A month down the track, oh, we have an opening. Oh, Jimmy Joe Blogs, he's a cruncher. There's no bias will fall into that as well. So I'm sure there's a level of fear that unfortunately some of the devs are, it just sucks to be in that position. Because like you said, what do you do? Particularly when you are forced to go to complain. If you need to make a complaint about someone in your company, you are forced to go to the company and then lodge that complaint and then still work with them the next day. Like that's just not a good cultural environment whatsoever. No. So, but then the US is sometimes not the greatest place to sort of get employment. They don't have we're very fortunate here to have certain benefits. In terms of in Australian sort of employment agreements and things like that. So it didn't. Some people in the US aren't so lucky. So it's like, okay, do we stick this out or do we try and take the risk and find a new job that may not be as lucrative as what they're in now? So it's a super difficult position. I'd hate to be in their position right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Because the thing about game devs is that you are always made to feel expendable. Like, how many people was it that Blizzard fired earlier this year?
Oh, it was a lot.
Like, just a massive number of people that were all fired.
Blizzard.
Yeah.
Activision.
The Blizzard side of things lost a lot, though. That's kind of what was felt.
Yes. Although Blizzard's dropped down my list in publishers from being like, my my big fanboy of them for many, many years, they've dropped down my list. And part of me is still like, it's not completely Blizzard. This is Activision's fault.
Where does the line stop these days, though? That's the real question. A
couple of years ago when Chris Metzen left Blizzard, that's when I was like, that doesn't seem right. He's in his 40s and he's retiring now. Either A, he's made a shit ton of money, but you're in a really good groove and you're retiring now. If anyone's not familiar with Chris Metzen, he was like the senior vice president of creative director for Blizzard and was one of the first recruits by them back in like the 90s when they were sort of starting off, and he came in as an artist for Blizzard and worked his way up to that. He was also the voice of Thrall in Warcraft. So big name, retiring in his mid-40s. It was a bit of a that doesn't sound right type thing.
He was just following the steps of Thrall. Thrall went off and retired.
Exactly.
Everything I've heard is basically that a lot of the big personalities inside of Blizzard actually departed not long after Activision and the merger.
Yeah.
And it's basically continued since then. And they haven't been retaining that old talent because the studio culture's changed.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Even Mike Morhaime, he was the one of the co-founders of Blizzard. I think it was like late last year, decided to step down as president, number one head honcho, down to like, CEO or something. So still a good level, but he's like one down from the top dog. And then like a couple of months later, he's like, yeah, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm like, I quit. And it's like, oh, you just know this is just, absolutely ridiculous. So I blame Activision for a lot of things, and they've certainly influenced the Blizzard culture.
yeah, I would definitely say that is what's happened. But yeah, so speaking of things being influenced for the worst, this is a little brief news item that I really think shouldn't be a news item, but Bungie announced nerfs to some exotic weapons and armor in the game. And then all the news websites picked up on it because a whole bunch of people on the Destiny Reddit lost their freaking minds. And everybody was throwing a shit about it, basically. And I'm just like, come on, guys. Come on. Come on.
It's certainly not newsworthy, but all that is media outlets going, oh, there's a shitstorm on Reddit. Let's talk about that. That's clickbait.
They had to find something to put in their front page this week that wasn't the ninth Game of Thrones article.
Oh my god! Oh, just reading Polygon this past week has been hell. But yeah, so a couple of weapons were nerfed, and most of the nerfs, like I'm reading through them, and I'm like, no, that sounds perfectly reasonable to prevent power creep. And like some of the stuff that was getting nerfed were exotics that I was using all the time, and I'm quite honestly like, thank God I have a reason to not use that exotic now.
Yeah,
like there's other things in the game to play with, but people are complaining like you're destroying the main reason I play, and it's like, come on,
this one gun is the only reason that you play.
I actually think it's really similar to when nerfs hit Hearthstone. Like, one of the big reasons why they do the same thing in that game is to take away the things that are the staple for so many people and mix up the meta a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's a healthy thing. Like,
absolutely.
So, it's Bungie doing it with Destiny 2 as well. I think, play with some different guns, experiment with some different stuff. Don't just use the same weapon for the entire time you play that game.
There's some guns and gear in the game that absolutely need to be buffed because they're pretty garbage right now. But like just complaining about these things being nerfed, like, come on, people. Like they're ridiculously powerful items.
You know what they should do, Matt?
it.
They should start a petition.
Oh God. Please don't.
No.
They don't work.
How did that petition go for Star Wars The Last Jedi? How did that work out for them?
I haven't heard anything about it since, which I think is probably the answer to that question.
Yeah, exactly. That's how they work out.
Absolutely. Well, no one's petitioning for a certain game called Skull and Bones, which we heard about past E3s, because it has been revealed that apparently that thing's being delayed. So it's getting pushed into 2020 and beyond. It's been delayed again, which, after the way that Sea of Thieves originally was received, probably not the most ill sort of advised move in the world. So making sure that game's right before they sort of splash out again is probably a good idea. But something that is on course for release pretty soon, World of Warcraft Classic. Now, I know that both of you guys are pretty keen WoW players from way back, and the fact that Classic is coming out and all of the news about that and people who are starting to get hands-on with the new Classic environment are now coming out and saying, hey, there's a whole bunch of bugs in the game, and then Blizzard turning around and saying, no, these aren't bugs. This is actually how WoW used to be, their features. How does that sit with both of you?
Me personally, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I want Classic WoW as... I'm a little scared because I did put a lot of time into Classic WoW. I was one of those, late teens, early 20-year-old that was just like, no, there's nothing more important than Classic. Or it wasn't called Classic WoW at the time, obviously. Of just like nothing else matters but this. So I am super excited. And for people who are going, oh, these are all broken, it's like, no, you've just been coddled for too long. You have been catered for too long. It is time to get back to bare bones, hardcore, tough gaming. And I kind of feel that's what WoW was. I'm sure there's people that kind of look at vanilla WoW and probably have that sentiment if they come from like an EverQuest perspective, something that I didn't miss out on, but I've got friends who played both and said they sort of reckoned EverQuest was harder. So it's a generational thing, but yeah, I think get over it. If it's too tough, then get over it. That's how it was. And that was what made it fun.
So you heard it here first, folks. Tough love for the OG WoW crowd. That's what they need.
My kind of take, like, some of the issues that were getting reported were like inconsistencies in the UI, and Blizzard basically turned around and said, yes, there's inconsistencies in the UI because that's what it was like. And I kind of get the impression that all of these people were like, when you make WoW Classic, it must be exactly like World of Warcraft used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're playing it and they're like, this is all broken.
Yeah.
And
Be careful what you wish for, motherfuckers.
It reminds me. I was gonna say, it reminds me of Halo Combat Evolved, and when that got its remaster, and people were playing it, and they were like, "My God, the physics on the Warthog and the fact that you can just launch it around everywhere is ridiculous. Why is the game this broken?" But then it's like, if you go back and play it, that's what it was like.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, if you go back to BlizzCon when they first, prior to their announcement of Classic WoW, so I think this was like 2015, 2016, and there was a panel for the, the upcoming expansion at the time. It could have been prior to Legion releasing, and someone asked about, would there ever be a vanilla WoW, and one of the panelists, he was one of the lead directors. I can't remember his name now, but he sort of said, you don't want that. You think you do, but you don't. And because I guess part of it comes back to these things where people aren't remembering what it actually used to be like due to 15 years of change. So he probably at the time he got a lot of flack for that, but looking back at it now, it kind of, I guess to some people, probably makes a bit of sense. Like, you're complaining about things that you think are broken when it's like, no, these are just things that improved over time. And if you want that classic experience, it's going, we're not going to give you the quality of life that you have now. No, it's like, yeah, okay, it probably at the time was a bug and it probably wasn't balanced. That's why it changed. But it's like, this is how it was though. And this is the version 1.12 that we're going with of the game. That comes with the bugs and the breaks. So they may actually be bugs and they may be broken, but that's how it was. And that's why it improved to what it is now. So I think that kind of has a bit of, it kind of resonates a little bit back to what he said. Like, you think you do, but you don't. Kind of right, I guess, if you think about it.
Yeah, there's no faster way to make someone want something, though, than telling them that they don't want something.
Oh, 100%. Except for Diablo Immortal. Don't you have phones? Get out of it. No.
I thought you were going to say syphilis for a second. I was going to go with that, but sure.
Are you sure we won't look back at that comment in a few years' time and go, but we did have phones?
It better be a miracle of a mobile game to have that reaction, I feel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, anyway, we won't get to talk any more about Blizzard tonight because moving into our main topic, they are not one of the publishers present at E3, but there are a whole bunch of other ones that are, which we're going to dig into and chat a bit about now. So what tonight is all about is our pre-E3 2019 show. Now, the way this works, and if you have listened to last year's episode where we covered this as well, what we like to do sort of leading up to the big event each year is have a bit of a chat about the E3 that came before, so the E3 of yesteryear, and all the things that were announced and presented and promised in different ways, shapes, and forms by the different publishers up on stage, how they performed on actually delivering to those expectations. And then we're going to have a little bit of a fun round of making some predictions for the big event this year, which is about 3 weeks out. So looking ahead to E3 2019, it's going to be on the 11th to the 13th of June, but the presentations themselves usually kick off a couple of days early on the 9th. So we have a list of all of the prezos this year. There are a couple of notable absences, of course. Sony is not going to be at E3 this year, so PlayStation for the first time in a long time is not going to be there. And they don't have a side event either. They're sort of doing their own thing at different intervals throughout the year this year, so we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. They've already had a couple of the State of Play presentations, of course, so they'll continue to do those, and they might have a PlayStation experience later in the year. We'll have to see. But the other big notable absence is EA as well. So EA for the last few years have actually been doing a event during E3 week that's been adjacent to the main venue. It's called EA Play, but the EA Play event usually has its own press conference as well. Notable this year, the difference is they're still running EA Play, but there's going to be no press conference. So it's going to be purely like a big come along and play EA games thing, but no announcements or presentations on new games. So they're kind of not really in the conversation as far as big announcements go. So yeah, It's an interesting one. But the rest of them are pretty much going to be the same as what we saw last year. So we've got Microsoft to look forward to. We've got Square Enix are doing another Prezzo, which surprised me after last year, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Bethesda should be a very interesting one. Devolver Digital and the PC Gaming Show, of course, they'll do their thing like they always do. Ubisoft and Nintendo, of course, to round out the other big ones. So let's have a very, very quick recap on some of the big things that were revealed last year. And what I'd actually like to challenge us to do as a group is maybe just rate them on how we think they've delivered. So we use old school ratings for this. So do we want to give them an A, an A minus, a B plus, a D, or the dreaded F on how we think they performed to expectations? So, gents, would you like to kick off with EA just quickly? Because even though they're not presenting this year, they did last year. So their big sort of press conference last year was when we got some of our big first looks at Anthem, amongst other things. So is there anything else that stood out to you as something worth mentioning a year in that has been delivered or not delivered on?
I think I'm getting old now. And
just this last 15 minutes, right?
No, just in general. And I feel I have a level of like, I feel like I'm cynical towards these things now. And when we sort of mentioned before about marketing versus the actual game, I'm kind of getting over things like E3, where they just tend to be. I know this is E3 in general, not EA, but EA is what starts it off. I think in general, EA are just a marketing machine, and that's it. That's all they are. Like whatever they show. So in terms of did they deliver? Based on what they showed last year, no, absolutely not. Like you look at what they brought out, and it's Anthem, one of the biggest flops. Which is bigger, Anthem or Fallout 76? Don't know. I think they're pretty much tied. Anthem might be a little worse off, so a big F there. Command and Conquer Rivals. You're not reading your audience right. No one wants Command and Conquer that I feel on a mobile game.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't need to wait a year to work out how that one was going to end.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, FIFA. Okay, it's the same thing. Rinse and repeat. Madden, NBA. It's just the same thing over and over again. So, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Come on. Big F for EA. You, in the sense that you have nothing original, and what you did present as original in the likes of, say, Anthem, it's all just either the same thing or it flopped. So did you deliver on EA expectations? Yeah, bang on A, because you didn't deliver. That's
what you expected. Yeah, that's fair.
Just a straight nah. EA, I'm glad you're gone. I'm glad you're out of this year's E3.
Like EA is all about their marketing. Anthem was just a marketing beast, and that's probably why it will have made its money back, probably. But yeah, no. If we're just judging EA by the shit they did at E3 last year and the things they talked about, it would be a massive F. Like it'd be an F minus. Like they in terms of Anthem and the promises they made, they didn't deliver. They delivered the same of everything they usually talk about. I don't think Unravel actually made a massive splash the way that Unravel 1 did.
No, the cool thing about that was that it was out when they sort of revealed it at the event. That was like an out now surprise, but yeah.
But like overall, no, EA was pretty freaking depressing. And quite frankly, yes, I'm glad they're taking this year off, because it means that maybe next year they'll actually have some really interesting stuff to talk about.
Yep, agreed. I'm not going to disagree with anything you guys said. Gives a big fat F from me. I think the only other game that they had that was worth mentioning was Battlefield 5, but that, again, really didn't capture a lot of attention at launch and got quickly buried by the Call of Duty stuff. So, yep.
Yeah.
Not great. All right, on to Microsoft. Now, Microsoft last year, I think, probably had one of their better years in terms of presentations. They covered a shit ton of stuff. So some of the big highlights that Microsoft went through in their press conference last year, they showed off the very, very first small teaser for Halo Infinite, which, of course, we haven't seen anything more about yet. They had the big trailer for Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, and we know how that sort of ended up. We had Crackdown 3, which, again, we know how that ended up. Metro Exodus, Kingdom Hearts 3. That was one of the 6 trailers for Kingdom Hearts we saw that day, I think. All the usual staples like Forza, or Forza, I should say. And some of the side stuff as well, like We Happy Few, and they had... the Cuphead expansion that we haven't seen yet. And they had the big thing about the new studio acquisitions as well, talking about how they acquired Ninja Theory and Playground Games and Undead Labs and so on and so forth. Some weird ones there. Very short teaser for Gears 5 that we haven't seen anything else for yet. Cyberpunk 2077, again, a lot of people are excited about that, but that's still a way off. So I don't know. The question is, how has Microsoft delivered on all of the stuff that they sort of showed last year? I think the expectations they set, unlike some of the other developers, was that we are showing you a bunch of stuff. Not all of this is 12 months away. So yeah. But was enough of it within the 12 months to make us sort of think positively upon what they showed?
So for me, I feel year on, year out, Microsoft I don't feel like they take enough risks in terms of like exclusives. And also I don't feel a need to buy an Xbox, primarily because their exclusives that have gone through them, you can get through the Microsoft store. So I kind of predict. I always look at and compare them to Sony and what the PlayStation is going to release. And when you look at the exclusives that Sony has in terms of like The Last of Us and God of War, what was that? No, Kingdom Hearts. That wasn't one. There was another one. I've lost it. It's completely just lost me now. But I kind of feel Sony take bigger risks in terms of their exclusives, in terms of their storytelling, where I feel Microsoft just plays it safe. And sure, I would say because of that, they have delivered on what they've said is coming out, but it's not. I don't feel it's anything special.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of disagree a little bit, because I totally agree. They don't take risks on their first-party exclusives. But then they announced last year that they purchased 5 studios. And if that's not taking a risk on first-party exclusives, I don't know what is. Like, there's obviously no games that have come out of that, so there's nothing that's come out of it that's like, here's all these massive exclusive titles that they're going to be releasing now that you can only get on the Xbox. But I do get the impression that last year for Microsoft was prepping.
Yeah.
They was prepping for this year, and they're going to go... I'll get to my predictions and everything, but that prepping is going to come back. And that, like, I almost feel like it's unfair to judge Microsoft on what they've delivered now, because, yes, what they've delivered is good, but I reckon that, if there was an S rank in school, then we'd be talking about an S rank post E3 if they actually deliver on what it seems like they're setting up for.
So I can see where you're coming from the prepping perspective, but I think if we go back to like the year before, I felt their focus was on backwards compatibility. In which case, once again, okay, you're just essentially rehashing games you've already got, and then you've got this year. Okay, you've got Halo Infinite. Great, it's a loved franchise, but that's a safe play. It's a loved franchise. When with Ori and the Will of the Wisps, once again, it's a sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest, which was really well received. Super safe play. Things that might be a little bit unusual is like Black Desert Online coming to the Xbox, bringing in that sort of Eastern MMO to the console. Sure, okay, that's a little bit outside the box. But then, with the acquisitions of the 5 studios, like I said, we don't know how that has played out or how that will continue to play out. But hopefully they don't turn into like EA and just acquire businesses and go, and you're done. And you're out. So, like I said, like last year, I felt it was safe. The year before, it's all about backwards compatibility with previous games that were awesome to play on Xbox. Once again, nothing out there that's too original. And that's kind of how I feel Microsoft have sort of been over past years.
Yeah, I think what both of you said is probably accurate in their own ways. Like, I think that they've played it super safe because they had to. And they really didn't have a lot to show last year in terms of big, flashy new exclusive releases. But like Matt was saying, I think last year was kind of a statement of intent. Like, almost their entire presentation was, this is what we're setting up to do. This is why you need to remain on the ride with us, because things are coming, things are changing, we're getting ready for war. And everything I've seen this year has kind of indicated that they are on track for that. Like, I don't think it would be much of a surprise that Microsoft is probably going to be one of the biggest ones to watch this year in terms of what are they going to do next, because with Sony not there, all eyes are kind of be on them to capitalize on that, space. So
What year was Scalebound?
that was
an
a
God.
couple before that. Yeah, that was
Was that a
cancelled.
couple?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was
All right,
cancelled
no,
around
that
the
was-
same time as the Amy Hennig's Star Wars project, I think. It was
No, that was going to be my point. Like, that was something different out there, original, and cancelled.
some of the stuff that is
yeah.
exclusive, though, they haven't done too badly with. Like, even Sea of Thieves, which sort of was a bit of a stillborn sort of launch initially, they've turned that around quite a bit. And that's a very popular game now based on the love and attention they've given it in the last year. So, and their presentation around that last year was around the DLC that they were planning. And they've kind of delivered on that. So, I mean, a lot of the other stuff that is exclusive is still a way off, like Gears, we'll probably see more about this year. Halo, who knows? Most of the other things they presented are available on other platforms, so nothing specific to Microsoft. But in terms of what they showed, I don't feel like they really sort of under-delivered on a lot of it. Like, it was very safe. They kind of delivered on what they felt they could. They haven't taken any big shots, but they probably are right to have not done that, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I would go and give them a B+. Lots of potential, but I'm looking forward to the next report card.
yeah, pretty much. In fact, if they were at school, that's almost the exact comment you could imagine written.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I'd be happy to go a low B as well. I think, they've not really put a foot wrong this last year. There's been no major controversies that I can really think of that have kind of poisoned the well, at least. So,
I mean, if I was to give it, I guess I'm probably being harsher, so I would probably go in that C+ to B- type thing, that type of space.
Yeah.
Just because I'm also more biased towards Sony.
Yeah.
So
that's fair. All right. Well, we got Square next. So Square Enix, who, I don't know, in my opinion, and probably shared by a number of other people, I thought their presentation last year was largely trash. So my expectations were super low on what they were delivering because it was yet another slice of Kingdom Hearts, which I don't give a shit about. And a bunch of other things that, what did they have? Just Cause 4, which sort of came out, the previous year.
Yeah.
The Quiet Man, geez, that was a real chart topper, wasn't it? So
sure. That was playing it risky and it completely failed, but that was taking a super big risk of that merging and melding of sort of, live sort of at live action converted into gameplay and just the whole premise around being deaf and things like that. I mean, it was a total bomb, don't get me wrong, but that was taking something completely out of the element in the gaming world. So that was at least interesting to see, but did not execute.
yeah. I mean, despite not being a Kingdom Hearts fan, most people who love that franchise seem to be reasonably happy with what they've released. So, I don't know. It's not for me. I kind of appreciate that it is for other people. Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit was really good as a free sort of standalone Life is Strange story. I thought that was a very cool launch from them, and that seemed to do reasonably well. It was free as well. So, what else? That's kind of the big ones. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, that was sort of, a bit of focus around that time as well. It wasn't spectacular. It was an okay game. I don't think there was anything massively to complain about with it.
Well, I guess I think the highlight for them was probably Octopath Traveler. I think that was put up for some like Game of the Year awards.
Yeah, it was decent.
So Square Enix is ever since I kind of dropped off them ever since like Final Fantasy 7 through to 10. That was my last sort of real interaction with Square Enix. After that, never really got into their game. So when you hear about Monster Hunter and Octopath Traveler and Nier Automata, that's a game that everybody seems to love. Never played it, so I can only really rate that based off what the public have really sort of said about their games. But that's probably not fair to rate something that I just don't know enough about.
Yeah. Christian loves that game. I think he would be all over it. But this is just like a special edition that they sort of announced for it because the actual Nier release was the year prior, I think. So, I don't know. I'd be kind of thinking maybe like a C- for Square, maybe a D if I wanted to be particularly harsh. There just wasn't anything particularly wow, but not a huge amount of big flops either. It's certainly no EA. So
If I just summarize my thoughts on Square Enix, it'd be set my expectations low, and I wasn't disappointed.
Yep,
C-.
that's fair.
That's fair. I mean, like I say, I like not knowing enough about it. The presentations may not have been that crash hot. So in terms of the original question of did they deliver, not so crash hot presentation or potential announcements, but a lot of well-received games in terms of Kingdom Hearts 3, Nier Automata, Octopath Traveler, Monster Hunter. These are all games that were actually really well-received, really well-reviewed. Final Fantasy 14, actually, I think I have read articles where that has continued to get better as well.
Yeah.
So based off those two things, it sounds like they probably did okay over the last year. In terms of the original question, where did they perform based off the presentation? A lot of well-received games.
Yeah, that's true.
Never played any of them, but that's just from what I've read online.
Speaking of well-received games, let's talk some Bethesda.
Oh, no.
All right.
Let me just scroll back up. Was there anything lower than F?
Well, hang on. Wait, just remember, Bethesda's not just Fallout 76 when it comes to last year's Prezzo, so there was other stuff too.
No.
I'm sorry, Luke. I'm sorry. And there is something lower than an F, and I will just read out what I have here on my notes right now. Bethesda don't get F, they get detention. Get out of my classroom.
All right, so without rehashing the Fallout 76 debacle, which we know was absolutely like a travesty at every level, and obviously they set some pretty high expectations with their game at E3 last year, which they absolutely failed to deliver on. They also had presentations for Rage 2. They had the very first reveal of Doom Eternal.
Worst presentation ever.
Of Rage, I didn't mind it. Oh, it was all right. The
my
Prey updates were actually
God, no.
really, really good. So Mooncrash and Typhon Hunter, which they revealed for the first time last year at E3, those updates to Prey were actually seriously freaking good. So I think that they're pretty notable. A lot of the other stuff was kind of their main staple, some Quake Champion stuff, Elder Scrolls Legends. They did show Wolfenstein 2 Youngblood, which hasn't been released yet, so we kind of have to leave that to when that's released. What else? We had the Skyrim Very Special Edition for Alexa. That was the spoof that was actually real, as it turned out, which was hilarious. Elder Scrolls Blades, which is now out. That's their mobile Elder Scrolls game, which is not getting super good reviews, so that's again probably another one for the not delivered
I gave
pile.
up on that.
Yeah.
I think I played about 5 minutes of that game and gave up.
And not worth mentioning anything about Starfield or the upcoming Elder Scrolls games because they're still a way off. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Bethesda's mostly Rage, Fallout 76, some Prey stuff, Elder Scrolls. Not a whole bunch there.
You can't even, half the things on this list they haven't delivered. Like, over half, they haven't delivered yet. Like, Rage 2 is out. Doom Eternal, no. Prey updates, boo, fucking who? Like, cool, I guess. Like, why is that on the E3 stage? I don't know. Like, they've done stuff, but 90% of the stuff they've actually done is shit.
Yeah.
Like,
and if you haven't seen, if anyone didn't watch the Rage 2 presentation, please go watch it. You will not, I mean, look, you won't get that 20 minutes of your life back, but oh my God. I remember watching that. I was actually in Discord with Brett, the other host of our show, and we were in Discord chatting because we're like, oh, we're actually, so the weekend, let's watch Bethesda. Let's see what Bethesda's bringing to the table this year. And we were watching it live on Twitch at the same time on Discord, chatting, talking through what we're watching. And oh my God, it was the band and the presenters. It was just like developers selling games on stage should not be a thing. Like, you're a developer, not a public speaker. I'm sorry. Maybe you're good at both. I don't know, but I kind of felt like overall in every E3 they always bring like the developers up to talk about their games, like the lead director. I say, no, you're the director of making a video game, and go do that. Get off stage and stop talking to people because you're making it worse. And I remember the Rage 2. The band was terrible. There was the guy with the long grey hair with the long grey beard who was just like asked a question and was like silent for like 30 seconds. And he turns to the crowd and he's like, yeah. And he's like trying to cheer them on, and the crowd's just like laughing at him. It's just like, it was so embarrassing. Anyway.
No, the Andrew WK performance, like, it felt like it should have been an intro, but instead it suddenly turned into a concert. And I was like, what the fuck has this become?
Is that the name of the band?
Andrew WK is the lead singer. He actually does one of the
Right.
voice parts for one of the characters in Rage 2 as well.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. When I was actually listening to the band, and like, if I closed my eyes and I wasn't watching the band, I'd be like, yeah, this sounds like a Rage song. And sure enough, when you actually listen to the same song while watching gameplay of Rage, it makes sense. But watching these guys perform, it was just embarrassing.
It was not helped by the constant cuts to the audience that were looking very unamused because it just went on too long.
God. It was just the audience was the funniest part. The looks.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Do yourself a favor. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. It was just awesome.
So
as bad as it could be.
Are you guys both thinking Fs then? Is that where you're at?
Yeah, I've got no love for Bethesda anymore.
Yeah.
They're off my Christmas card list.
Okay, they're on your shit list. All right.
Yeah.
I would be a little bit more forgiving on Bethesda because I think they probably delivered on a little bit more than EA personally, but I totally understand the sentiment. So, yeah, Fallout 76, hard to come back from. We'll see how that happens.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not looking forward to Starfield or Elder Scrolls 6. I'm setting my bar so low for that.
Oh, they're probably so far off that it's not even worth worrying about this year anyway. Speaking of not worth worrying about, let's skip over Devolver Digital and PC gaming because, I mean, there's such a mixed bag anyway. It's probably not worth recapping on too much of that stuff. Ubisoft's an interesting one. So Ubisoft last year, they kicked off with their annual Just Dance prezzo, of course, but then they got into some interesting stuff. So they had the big trailer for Beyond Good and Evil 2, which we still haven't seen. They had Trials Rising, which is now out. Tom Clancy's The Division 2, of course, which is out. They had the Mario and Rabbids Donkey Kong stuff. Skull and Bones, which we now know has been pushed out quite a bit. Transference, which is that weird Elijah Wood sort of horror game, which has been released and didn't tend to hear too much about that during the year. Starlink Battle for Atlas, which actually came out to a fair success from what I remember. The For Honor DLC, which seemed to be reasonably popular. The Crew 2, which was not. And Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So there's definitely some hits there, I think, out of that list. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I think, was widely received very favorably. Division 2, absolutely the same. And Chris, you've been playing a fair bit of Division 2, haven't you? Where do you sort of land on that game at the moment?
I got my 100 hours in. I think
just
based off
safe 100 hours, yeah.
Well, compared to something like hard, I actually don't feel like 100 hours is like anywhere near like hardcore people who put thousands or hundreds of hours.
I can read the Steam review right now as you're writing it in the air. It's played 100 hours of this game. Total shit. Wouldn't recommend.
No. Look, I enjoyed it. I had fun with Division 2. I got to the point where I could do everything I could without going into the raids. Don't have time for raids in games anymore. Unless without some like serious forward planning, which I don't do. So look, Division 2. I'm good with that. That was fine. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I didn't bother. I gave up on Assassin's Creed a long time ago. For Honor, I did hear did seem to improve, and it definitely it was a game that I've heard has turned around. Crew 2 didn't waste my time because the first one was absolutely rubbish. And the rest of them, Skull and Bones, well, you haven't delivered because you've pushed it back. So 50-50, I feel, with Ubisoft in terms of what they have sort of promised and what has been delivered. Trials Rising, I think that kind of just came and went within a couple of weeks, so nothing.
People who love Trials
lasting.
Liked Trials.
It's a niche game. It's a niche game, but it's not breaking barriers to get new people into the genre.
For sure.
So, maybe more 60-40, I think, in terms of how they delivered.
Okay. Any thoughts, Matt? Anything that stuck out to you?
I reckon Ubisoft did excellent this year.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond Good and Evil 2 was never going to come out this year, and it felt like, this is like you have to look forward to. And if they didn't update people on that, people will be losing their freaking minds.
Yeah, they did kind of set that expectation. They didn't make you think it was going to come out immediately, so yeah.
Yeah, but everything on there, like, the people I know that like Trials, love Trials Rising, like, it's a return to form. And the Division 2 was such a brilliant launch. No game that is a looter shooter has released like that in ever, basically. Like, it came out and was just brilliant from day one, and that's incredible. That's a massive achievement. And all the other stuff, like, Pretty much, they've come out. They've released the things they said they're going to release. They've done things right when they said they were going to do it right. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was met with really positive reviews. Like, it's an A+ for me.
I mean, I wouldn't go probably that high because there's still a few standouts that haven't really come out or set the world on fire, like The Crew 2. You know, no one gives a shit about that. Skull and Bones has been pushed back. I'd be happy to go with about a B, but they're definitely doing pretty well. Ubisoft are not, I think, putting too many feet wrong at the moment, for sure. I'm curious to see them keep that up because they've got some pretty solid franchises in their stable now. So, yeah, interesting one to watch. All right, moving on to Sony. We're running along, so let's fire through the last few fairly rapid fire. So, I mean, Sony was a pretty easy one for last year because they didn't actually show a lot. They had the presentation for The Last of Us Part 2, which was the musical number that, again, the game's so far out that really a bit too early. They had some very brief Destiny 2 Forsaken stuff. They had the Ghost of Tsushima, which is not out yet, so again, not just out. Control, which I think has that come out yet? No, that's a month or two out, I think. Neo 2's in development. The Resident Evil 2 remake's probably the big one that stands out. So that did come out early this year, and that was a bit of a surprise for everybody. And in case anybody forgot, that remake is fucking amazing. Spider-Man, of course, was one of the big ones last year. We saw some more Death Stranding because, of course, we did. So, I mean, that's the big stuff. So, I mean, the standouts to me would be Resident Evil 2 and Spider-Man. I think those two were pretty good. A lot of other stuff that's not out yet and won't be out for a while. So, I don't know.
Okay, look, for a show so dedicated to The Last of Us, they built a fucking stage for it. We're still waiting for it.
Yeah.
D-.
Interesting.
I felt Sony was a little bit like Microsoft in the regards that it's like they're preparing for the next couple of years as opposed to the next year. Sure, Spider-Man, that was a hit. Call of Duty 4, I'm Black Ops 4, not a big fan of Call of Duty, but that continues just to sell like hotcakes. The Resident Evil 2, completely well received. Lots of people loved it. I guess there is the Destiny 2 Forsaken that came up during it. Not really an exclusive or anything like that, but they did have Sony tend to have like exclusive timed stuff.
Yeah, they had like a strike
platforms.
or something, just like they did with the main game launch. Yeah,
exactly. So they don't. The games that they kind of at least announce and release don't usually tend to fail. Or they don't tend to fail hard. So, and I think they've got a lot of promise for the future, particularly around Death Stranding. I'm super keen to see how this comes out, not because it's Sony, but because it's Hideo Kojima. So, I felt it was a preparation set more than anything else. Here's a couple of games to get you started. You've got your Spider-Man, you got your Resident Evil 2, you got Destiny 2, all this type of stuff. Kingdom Hearts 3 was also on the platform. But then, like, just a little bit later, you're going to have The Last of Us 2 and you're going to have Death Stranding. So there's a little bit of a hook just to keep going. So, but there wasn't as much presented there compared to other things. So
certainly past years.
Yeah. So did they deliver on what they said? Yeah, 50-50. The games they did deliver on, solid. Games that they are still yet to come out can be anticipated to be solid games as well. Yep. So I don't know where to place them.
I think it's pretty accurate. I if we're talking grades, I'd say maybe a solid C+ for Sony. They had some pretty decent stuff, but again, lots of things that left you wanting. So, not bad, not great, but yeah, they kind of didn't take too many risks last year either. So yeah, I don't know. It was a weird year for them, and going to be a weird year for them this year apparently. So
I don't know. I'd say that Last of Us stage was a massive risk.
Yeah, well, the way they presented it certainly was not great.
Oh, it was a mess.
Yeah.
Like that part was a mess.
Yeah.
But I do kind of find it a little bit funny that everything that we're still waiting for is PS4 exclusive.
That's true.
So,
I mean, if you were going to release some pretty heavy-hitting games in this generation, like this is kind of the time to show what those platforms can do just prior to moving over to the next one. So, yeah. All right, well,
it has me a little bit worried they're holding off for the next console, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think we'll see some pretty solid cross-platform games, if I was to guess. But yeah. All right, well, last on the list, we have Nintendo. So Nintendo, again, having some pretty solid years at the moment. Last year, they presented a whole bunch of stuff. The headliners last year were, of course, Super Smash Ultimate. That was kind of their big thing last year. But they had a few other small things. So they had the Fire Emblem Three Houses sort of trailer, which I don't think the game's released yet. We had a little bit of stuff for Mario Party. We had Daemon X Machina, which we've had the trial for that, but the main game hasn't come out yet. Overcooked 2, which is out. Hollow Knight on Switch again, which is, that's a known game, so probably don't need to talk too much about that. Killer Queen Black, which is not out yet, and Octopath Traveler. So in terms of what is actually out, I mean, the other big thing that got everybody excited around Nintendo at E3 last year was the announcement of Fortnite on Switch, which I think that has actually made a big splash. There's a lot of people playing Fortnite on Switch these days, my kids included. So, I don't know. Where do you feel Nintendo was at from delivering to expectations last year? Any thoughts?
I think, like, Nintendo, it's really important to remember the context with them that it's just another Direct, essentially. It's just that it's at E3, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, like, they continuously deliver amazing stuff year over year. And like, everything they show at E3 is just a small handful of the stuff they could be showing, but they're holding that off for another Direct later. And, like, you can almost, with Nintendo, like, every day is potentially an E3 with Nintendo, and I love that. So, for me, I think it's always a stellar effort, and the fact that they keep on focusing on indies, especially in more recent Directs, like, that's fantastic. Nintendo's really impressed me this past year. It's an A+ from me.
Okay, interesting. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, look, Nintendo, they continue to perform. They're always a solid performer year in, year out. They always sort of seem to deliver on what they promise, and they just always seem to have just really well-crafted games, whether they're sort of, your big Super Smash Bros., your Fortnites, but even down to, like your Pokemon Let's Go and things like that. It's all... They just continue. They do continue to deliver. Once again, though, they do probably play it safe because people love their Marios, they love their Smash Bros, they love their Mario Karts, and Fortnite's in there as well. Your Pokemon's in there, so not super risky. But although they play it safe, it's always solid and they always deliver. So look, they'll be on the higher scale of, I think, that B range.
I think if Nintendo have shown anything in the last year especially, they're really good on their communication front these days when it comes to setting expectations. Like one thing that really stood out to me was earlier this year when they had that presentation about the state of the Metroid Prime 4 development. And that was not good news. That was like hey, we're letting you, the fans, know that, shit's gone awry and this is what we're doing to rewrite the ship. The fact that they actually put the effort in to make that clear and transparent, I thought was a huge tick in the box for them. I was like,
builds confidence.
I really respect that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good. All right, well, we're on to the fun bit now. So that's most of the major ones done. Let's make some quick predictions before we round out the show. So we've got a few minutes left. What would you like to say is going to happen this year if you had to put your finger in and say, I'm going to call this. I'm going to call it now. I'm going to look awesome when it happens. And if it doesn't, no one's going to remember. So, Chris, as the guest, I'm going to invite you first. Would you like to throw in a prediction, whether it be a safe one or a weird and wacky, crazy one? What do you think is going to happen at E3 this year?
Look, I think we're going to get an announcement for Last of Us 2. Mm-hmm. I think we'll get a release date announcement. It's not an announcement of the game, sorry, an announcement of the release date, which I would say would be, I would almost go to say September 20. I think we'll probably see it late next year.
Ooh, okay.
That's right. So it's still a bit of time. We've got over 12 months to go. So, but hopefully with no delays, September 20, we'll have a look. Look, I think there'll be more Call of Duties, there'll be more Battlefields, there'll be more FIFAs and all that type of stuff. That's I think a pretty easy one. But with EA and Sony out of it, I don't know what's going to take their place. What's going to fill their gaps? Microsoft was big. I don't know if they can get much bigger in their presentation. I'm sure they could if you really wanted them to. And what I don't think we'll see anything more from Bethesda too much in the Starfield or Elder Scrolls 6 space. That's still a couple of years away. So I think the big one for a lot of people is something like The Last of Us 2 and getting a release date for that.
Which presentation are you personally most looking forward to out of the different publishers?
Well, actually, now that I've just thought about it, Sony's not in it, so I don't know who's going to announce Last of Us 2.
Oh, yeah, probably won't be at E3, so yeah.
So that's probably not good. That's not going to go unless no, Naughty Dog won't be there unless Naughty Dog are part of someone else's.
I doubt it.
No, they won't be either because it's all Sony.
They're Sony
That completely
third party,
that completely throws my prediction completely out of it.
Well, I tell you what, if there was a release announcement for The Last of Us Part 2 and you called it and Sony's not there, how freaking awesome would you look?
I got the inside word. That's what that is. The unofficial, absolutely no idea inside word. So yeah, look, I don't know what to. It's going to be odd. Like I just don't know what to expect this year with some of the major players out of it. It is a little bit more difficult to see what's. I don't see anyone really taking the place of EA unless Activision is going to start doing something. Shit,
I don't think they really have a leg to stand on at the moment either.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
Well, if there's someone I know who does like to prognosticate, it is Mr. Matt Diet.
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Never. No.
What do you think's
All
going
right,
to
I'm
happen?
going to go straight for the crazy, wacky ones.
All right.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
So, Doug Bowser is going to get up on stage
Oh, I love it already. Yep.
at the Microsoft conference,
Okay.
and they will be announcing a whole bunch of Microsoft games coming to the Switch, cough, rare cough.
Okay.
Yep. And then we'll get total madness and rioting will ensue as Master Chief is announced for Smash.
Wow. Okay. That's
Master Chief versus Solid Snake.
That's some ballsy predictions. I like it.
Wow. Okay, that's extreme. I didn't realize we were going to that type of extreme.
Yeah. No, that's
All right,
cool.
okay.
That's cool.
No, I went for one of my most crazy ones since we're running out of time here, but I thought that was a pretty good one. I would honestly not be surprised though if we did actually end out with somebody from Nintendo on Microsoft stage. Like, quite genuinely, I kind of think that's going to happen. I think there will be xCloud on the Switch.
Interesting. You don't think it'll be the Ubisoft sort of bromance that we've had in recent years between them and Nintendo?
Maybe, like we'll see, but I'm fairly sure that Microsoft and Nintendo are up to something.
Okay.
If they don't end up cooperating, or it might be Microsoft on the Nintendo stage, quite honestly, because it's their stuff going to the Switch. But like either way, I am so down for that. Like it is exactly like what I wrote in my shit fic. So
I do like the spin on Doug Bowser being involved somehow, though. That's very cool. Start to make him the new celebrity, the new front man in place of Reggie.
Like come on, you cannot put him on stage with a gigantic shell on his back.
Yeah. I like it.
People will love it.
Oh, no, they need the Bowsette crown. He needs to just rock up with that. That'd be hilarious.
I predict though that the Sony crew will be found drinking in a private booth in a nearby bar, probably.
Okay.
Nintendo will announce a smaller travel-sized version of the Switch. It'll look remarkably like a PSP, but will actually be successful.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Well, I'm going to jump in with some predictions then. I've got a fairly specific one when it comes to Bethesda, which I want to put out there. So I think that the intro for Bethesda's press conference this year will be 100% honing in on Doom Eternal. I think they're going to go absolutely balls to the wall on Doom Eternal. So much so that I think they're going to open with a musical presentation just like they did last year. I think that it's going to be Mick Gordon himself actually up on stage doing some music. But I think that he is actually going to bring with him the heavy metal choir that we heard he was putting together months past for the game's soundtrack. I think they're actually going to have that choir at E3 and they're going to have them performing.
You'll like this.
Yep.
Because in my Bethesda predictions, I have it ended with, ultimately, we'll all be disappointed unless it was made by id.
Yep. Pretty much, yep. But I reckon that's what they're going to open with. They're going to go super hard. They're going to show a whole bunch of Doom Eternal stuff. That's going to be the big focus for their show. When it comes to Fallout 76, I think that they're actually going to show a bit of content they've got coming up for that, but I don't think that they're going to jokingly refer to the troubled waters of the launch like they have in the past with things. Like, you know how last year they made a few in-jokes about, the break at early test access because our games sometimes have issues on launch, that sort of... I don't think they're going to do those jokes this year. I think they're just going to glide straight on past and say, this is what we're doing to add to the game. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they don't need to. It's still fresh in our memories about how bad it is.
Absolutely.
They don't need to joke about it.
Absolutely not.
We're doing it for them.
People won't find it funny. Like, they will roll their eyes and go, this isn't funny.
Yeah, you already did this
you
last
genuinely
year.
pissed
Yeah.
us off.
Yeah. I also think that we will see during the Microsoft presentation gameplay footage of the new Battletoads. I predict that I also will not like it, which will make me very, very sad. And I think that all eyes are going to be on Microsoft this year. I think that they're really going to sort of come out swinging, and we're going to see some stuff from them unlike what we've seen before. So I'm super looking forward to it.
They're absolutely going to announce their console. I'm very sure of that. They're going to announce a console.
I'm going to say that they're not. I'm actually going to predict that they're not going to announce a console.
Okay.
Yep.
That's fine by me.
Yeah.
Like I think they'll announce it, but it won't be until next year, like late next year.
Okay.
That it will actually come out.
Look, if they're going to announce anything big, I think it'll be the cloud streaming stuff. I don't think it'll be the box itself, but
potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be interesting though.
I'm kind of disappointed though that EA is not going to be there, because I thought it would be really fun to predict them actually doing a new sports entry that will be lightsaber fencing 2020.
Oh god. They just need to have like some sort of back alley knife fighting sort of franchise that nobody's heard of before, and something totally new. Be great.
I do reckon though, Ubisoft, it's about time they announce a new Rayman.
Really? Maybe that's the next Nintendo collaboration.
What do you guys think is going to be the next major game that's going to come to mobile?
Ooh. To mobile. Well, I did actually see leaked footage earlier today of the new Mario Kart on mobile, which is looking pretty good, I got to say. But we already knew about that because that got announced a little while ago.
Okay.
I do think it'll be Nintendo that would do it, because like they've had so much success with Pokemon Go. They'll release a mobile game and it'll be good. So
yeah, I don't know. That's a interesting question. I would.
Well, just trying to think about Command and Conquer onto mobile. There was also Elder Scrolls Elder Scrolls franchise onto mobile. Gears of War onto mobile. So I'm just kind of thinking, I'm just trying to guess what's going to be next. That sort of major sort of franchise going to mobile.
Honestly, an XCOM style game like the Mario versus Rabbids stuff, that would actually be a good fit for a mobile platform, I think. They could easily make that style of game, but I just can't think of any particular company that would announce something like that this year. Just, yeah.
I could see Blizzard, Activision going and announcing like something with Warcraft on mobile.
They won't do it at E3 this year, though. That'll be later.
Yeah, it'd be at BlizzCon. It wouldn't be at E3.
Oh, even at Gamescom, because they typically have a pretty decent presence there as well.
Yeah.
Or Tokyo Game Show as well. Paris Games Week.
They would be silly to announce anything on mobile after their Diablo Immortal abomination.
They'll do it. Yeah. They'll still do it.
Hang on, I've got it. I've got it. Nintendo are going to come out this year. They're going to go full old man Japan, and they're going to have Princess Peach's Panty Panic on mobile.
Oh, God, no.
There you go. That's my last crazy prediction. Anyway, that's it. We should end it there. Wrap up. Call it a night. We got plenty to suss over. Anyway, that has been a show. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you want to get hold of us, all the usual places, mail at partyloaded.com. We're on Facebook, of course, partyloaded, at partyloaded show on Twitter. And check out everything at the hub at channelendgame.com. You can find links to our Twitch and our YouTube and everything else there. And, of course, Chris, you should check out Control-Alt-Record. So where can people find you and everything you've got going on?
Yeah, so look, we stream on Twitch as well with our show. Bit of a sort of a focus as well, bringing guests onto our show. And you can find us at twitch.tv/CarPodTV. Gonna admit, we have actually the worst name for a podcast ever. The amount of abbreviations that we have in hindsight, it's just the worst name. But look, you can actually, if you've got your dedicated podcast app, just search for Control Record. You'll find us there. We are on Twitter. We're on Instagram. You can find us at, Twitter's like at CarPodTV, Instagram, CarPodTV. But if you want to follow myself personally, I am on Twitter, which is just Herdy_CarPodTV as well. But yeah, that's it. We are primarily on Twitch. I try to focus on bringing on Twitch content creators from WA onto the show every so often to have a chat with them, so I can get their sort of journey into the live streaming world as well. So you kind of get a bit of variety there in terms of the people that we bring on. But that's pretty much it. So
journey into the dark purple unknown of Twitch.
Yes.
Oh dear. Yeah. But yeah, thanks very much for joining us tonight, Chris. It's been great having a
thank
chat
you.
and talking everything E3. Something that I feel that people who do regular gaming podcasts should probably have a hat in the ring and a say on what they think is going to happen. So it's good to hear your thoughts. Thanks for that.
No, well, thank you for having us on. It's been a lot of fun. Nearly breaching that 2-hour mark. So what else could we go just to break it? Can we keep going?
That's it. We're stopping it now. Pulling the plug. That's it. Matt, quick goodbye.
Okay, goodbye.
No, thanks everybody. It's been great. We'll see you again same time next week for another fantastic show. But until then, good night.
Goodbye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.